Today we're chatting with the author of Your Personal Journey with Food, a roadmap for the confused and frustrated dieter. You definitely don't want to miss this one, so don't you change that dial or drop that phone. We're about to level it up and shatter the mold. Question. In a world where groupthink is the norm, others want what you've earned, and thinking for yourself will get a target painted on your back, how do you flip the script and level up your business, your money, relationships, your health, your status, and your life? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan, and it's time to shatter the mold. Welcome to another episode of Shatter the Mold. Andrew S. Kaplan, really excited to be here with you today. We've got an awesome guest and a really awesome, insightful interview on the way. Before we get there, quick update and huge thanks to everyone who continues to read and review the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. I can't tell you how awesome it is to keep looking at those 5-star reviews, but also the emails that you send in letting me know the way that you're using the content from the book. I really appreciate that. Again, it's been a really exciting year. The book was featured in Yahoo late last year, but now more recently in USA Today and in Forbes. And, you know, those reviews I was talking about were past 1,500 5-star rave reviews and ratings on the US site for Amazon. There's more globally. And, of course, 1,500 is a nice, interesting word because the YouTube channel in support of the book has also surpassed 1,500 subscribers. So right now, those numbers are going hand in hand, but I'm sure at some point it's going to get a little bit more in the subscriber count, which no complaints here. Whether you're liking the channel or reading the book, I'm a happy camper. Speaking of which, if you haven't checked the book out yet and you want to, you can just feel free to go ahead and go on to lastlawofattractionbook.com. That'll auto forward to the Amazon listing where you can check it out in either Kindle or paperback or audiobook. And if you don't want to pull out your wallet and you want to check out the YouTube channel that supports it, that's youtube.com/AndrewCap. With that said, let's get to today's guest. Tracy Cromwell is the author of Your Personal Journey with Food, a roadmap for the confused and frustrated dieter. After being warned by her doctor 15 years ago that she was on the fast track to becoming a type 2 diabetic, Tracy had to take a close look at her relationship with her life, and more specifically, her relationship with food. This new perspective inspired her to go back to school, where she trained in more than 100 dietary theories and studied a variety of practical lifestyle coaching methods. Tracy now leverages her experience and her education to create a more supportive environment for her clients to develop true, authentic body confidence from the inside out. Today, our plan is to take a thorough deep dive into what it was like to face those challenges up close and personal, and what she really learned from it on her path toward a new way of living. So, without any further ado, Shatter the Mold warmly welcomes Tracy Cromwell. Tracy, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Shatter the Mold.
Oh, my word, Andrew, thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We've already had a conversation where I was fortunate enough to be interviewed by you and learn a lot about you. And obviously, I'm a hyper observant person, and I always notice where we kind of have a parallel in mindset or viewpoint and where we don't. And it was just very interesting to see how many things we were aligned on. And I knew that I really wanted to put you in front of my audience so that they can hear your perspective and really get a feel for you and based on your expertise and your experience. Before we get there, just to put you on the spot, because we all have our elevator pitches, if someone were to ask you in your own words what you do, what would you say to them?
Oh my goodness, that's a really good question. So what I do is, I help people lose weight for good. And I know that's not sounding very fancy, but that's basically what I do. And it's all about that for good part. I help them create a healthy, supportive relationship with food. We get rid of that volatile relationship so that they can be successful with it the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Now, volatile relationship, obviously, people can really relate, some more than others, and we all have our stories. I imagine you have something that really inspired you on this path that really gets you so motivated to help people along these lines, right?
Absolutely. I've had challenges with food since I was young. And when I was really young, I didn't even know it. I just know I didn't feel good. I had anxiety. I would have stomach aches. I would have anxiety going to school. I would then have diarrhea at school and all the anxiety associated with that. I'd go home sick and I'd feel better. They'd send me back to school. I mean, it was just kind of a very interesting situation. And as I got older, and into high school, I realized really that I didn't have the energy a lot of other people had. You know, I tired very quickly and I was just so anxious. And I never associated it towards diet or food. And so as I got into high school, I started realizing I didn't look like, you know, the perfect girl in the magazine. I didn't, you know, if I could find anything wrong with me, I found it basically. It started very, very young. And that relationship went into personal relationships, and it went to seeking approval from outside in, and a hostility, you know, really towards my body, because I thought if it would just be perfect and do what I wanted, I could have all these wonderful relationships. And so I just was very hostile with it, to the point of just being a chronic yo-yo dieter. And I would diet with a lot of angst and feel very deprived, and I had to give up a lot of things. And then as I got older, you know, I realized now I look back, I have photos of when I was in really good shape. And when I looked at those photos, my mind immediately went back to this very anxious person who didn't have self-confidence in who she was, and still didn't know why she was so fit. You know, I, again, this whole thing went on and on until finally one time, you know, I ended up pre-diabetic, and my doctor said, hey, you can change this. All you need to do is, you know, get your blood sugar back down and stop eating refined carbohydrates. And off she sent me. And that was 2006. And so I went home, and it was like, all right, that sounds great, but I don't know how to eat without refined carbohydrates. I have a whole pantry full of refined carbohydrates. and then I had 2 teenage kids and a husband, and, you know, but that really started also an aspect of the way I looked at myself, that I punished myself again for why didn't I take care of myself sooner? Why didn't I appreciate what this body was sooner? I think I was 39, you know, and I was like, it's over. This is what happens to everybody in their 30s. That's what you're sold. You're
Right.
sold that, you know, by a certain age, all this stuff's going to happen. You'll end up probably on a, you know, some kind of a prescription for diabetes or blood pressure, whatever that might be. And so I headed into some, you know, depression on that. But what was interesting to me was that I also felt like I came home with a note that I had some kind of permission to put some boundaries up around myself.
Okay.
And that was really interesting. So I was able to go home, and I said, hey, you guys, I have to, my doctor told me I need to lower my blood sugar levels, and I need to start eating like whole grain, instead of refined carbohydrates. And so it was really interesting, that for some reason I wasn't willing to go down that path of caring for myself by saying I was worthy of taking care of myself. I, for some reason, thought I had to have a note. So
there's a couple things here, because I know there's more to the story, but I want to highlight a couple things I've heard as you say here.
Yeah.
First of all, you know, a big chunk of our show is entrepreneurs. There's something clear here for, you know, for all the other details aside, you understand the pain of the people that you're helping in such an intimate, clear way. But also just from, regardless of whether you are an entrepreneur or not, the things I'm getting out of here is like, one, isn't it funny how easy it is for us to judge ourselves? Isn't it amazing how sometimes after we're past that point in our life, we could look at those photos and even say, oh, wow, that, you know, that person looked a lot better than I thought, or that person had a lot more going for them. And it's also interesting that whether diet and nutrition is even in the mix, we all have body or self-judgment issues. We all have even imposter syndrome. We have all these different things relaying out through the whole piece. But the reason why I wanted to kind of stop you mid-story, because I wanted to make sure to highlight it, because this was so important. You, through this doctor, through this specific situation, you had your doctor's note. And not everyone gets the quote unquote doctor's note, but you know, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's someone else giving us permission or it's us finally getting to a place where we give ourselves permission, I'm assuming that this story has a happy ending from this point on, and that fact you were finally in that position to do something about it, because that's the key. Whether we're talking about health, or we're talking about nutrition, or we're talking about our business, we're talking about our love life, we're talking about our money situation, we're talking about anything, there has to come a point where we have permission to change the circumstances, especially given the specifics of this, where you just said, like, the doctor said, don't eat XYZ. We are in this world where the commercials give us that, the supermarkets give us that, meaning it's an uphill battle to move around from that. All the more reason why, especially in this case, you needed to have that level of permission so you can take that next step up. I just want to highlight that and turn it back over to you to kind of hear the rest of where we're at here.
That was great. I love how you brought that together. And, so in 2006 was when I was diagnosed. I do want to say that, and I should have, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but, let's just say we were in a meeting with like 36 people. We would have, I believe the statistic, and I'll have to recap this, but, out of those 36 people, there would probably be 6 people with prediabetes. The scary part is that several of them wouldn't even know it. So I was walking with prediabetes probably for several years, and then as I got myself through this, I still yo-yo dieted. I tried the 90-day, I tried a 500 calorie, I tried, everything. And what was interesting to me was through those programs, through all of that, I still felt deprivation. I felt like I was losing things that I loved. I was different from everybody else because no one else was having to do it. So I had those things going on in my mind that were very challenging. And, I had a knee injury in 2005, a snowmobiling accident, which basically kind of took out my lower leg capacity. And so I had a bit of a mental tantrum about that too, so my brain went into, victim. But then there was always this little voice, and I want to say it was very small then, but it was this optimism, and she would speak and she'd be like, hey, maybe, maybe we can figure this out. And then that other side, blah, 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 all the different parts of our brain. And so I thought, maybe we can figure this out. So after several aspects of that, an interesting part too was I lost my job in 2008. So a couple of years after I was diagnosed, I lost my job. I was in the housing industry, building houses. I was a purchasing manager, estimating manager. And with the crisis, I was booted out. So I had that too. I was like, oh my gosh, I have no job. I've ruined my body. I'm a loser, and all this. And then all of a sudden, that voice in my mind said, oh, you have a note. This is so funny again. What do you want to do now? What could you possibly want to do? You've been given permission. You don't have to stay in the industry. What do you want to do? And what was interesting, the first thing that came to my mind was I would love to go back to school, maybe go back, be a naturopath. And then another thought was maybe I'll be a trainer. And again, ego came up. You're overweight, you're pre-diabetic. No one's going to listen.
Who wants to take advice from you about
Who's
this?
Who's going to listen to
right.
you? So I fought it. And other people were like, you don't want to go back to school and spend that money, and all these people, I was looking for everybody else's opinion. And so I stumbled through some other types of, direct sales and everything like that. But through that, I really realized I loved helping other people feel better. I loved helping people. I would do it for free. I would do what I do for free, and it was like light bulb, Right. And, so it was interesting. I fought it and I went back to consulting and construction, and my brain was like, oh, come on, let's do this. Let's take our experience, get some education, and help some people. And so what was interesting was through that journey, I had to really let go of my ego, that perfectionist, the one that wanted to keep me in line because, we don't want to fail. And when I was able to ease up on that and then start that journey of learning, and then, oh my gosh, it made sense why all these things happened to me mentally, emotionally, physically, and the relationships with food. I, I was like, oh my word, And so it was really interesting how I took these really hard times, these really difficult scenarios, and I allowed I want to say my inner voice, that one that I'd shut her down for years and years. And I realized I came full circle to a career that I was one that I actually had wanted, since I can remember. And through all that, it was learning about me, learning about how I think about the way my body functions. How does my mind react to food? Oh my gosh, we live in this amazing machine. It's like, and it reacts to chemical reaction. It's just like nutrients and all of this make it do things. And when I was able to say, one of the things I love to ask people is, well, why do you eat? Why do you eat? And it's like, well, why do I eat? Well, I used to eat because I felt empty emotionally. I would eat because I was sad or bored or anxious. I would eat to cover up a stomach ache because I ate something that I didn't realize was making me feel sick. So I'd eat something else. And once I started doing that work and then enjoying the result of like, wow, I'm eating because I'm bored,
Right.
Or I'm eating because I'm sad. I'm eating because I'm sad. So what can I do instead of eating to feel that emotional connection? Because we have such a strong connection to food. I write about that in my book too, that connection with food. And so the story I want to say is that once we're aware, once we can be curious, once we can have that like, oh my gosh, I wonder what my body will do if I crowd in or add some more nutritional food. Maybe I don't have to take stuff away yet, but maybe I add that, and you start to pay attention, and the body starts to react to different things that we eat. Our mind, even. I know when I eat something that really agitates my gut and my intestinal tract, it's really interesting. I get anxious and a bit paranoid. It's really interesting.
So I'm picking up a lot here. And by the way, I'm kind of like not interrupting because as you're kind of laying this out, you're dropping a bunch of little really like nuggets of insight or really nuggets of awareness that I want people to hear. So quick, recap part two.
Let's do it.
Because what I'm also getting here is like, and at first when I'm recapping, it's like, okay, you got that note, you got permission. But it turns out in that moment, at least for whatever the situation is, that wasn't enough. You didn't act on it right away. And the reason I want to highlight that is because I think oftentimes we do run into that moment where it's okay to finally make a change. And for whatever reason, we don't make that change. And I remember I was talking about the ego when you were interviewing me. I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole. But the point is, the reason I'm bringing this up is when you get that call to action and you don't act on it, it's very important to not tell yourself, well, I missed my window. What you did, and what I'm observing and listening here is, you kind of let it go, but at one point you kind of let it back in. You let that voice of, well, what if it could be a different way? You let that take over. And again, we're talking in the context of health and nutrition, but this carries over into, are you getting into toxic relationships over and over again?
Yes.
Are you in a bad job that you shouldn't be in? Are you an entrepreneur and you're going down the wrong path in your business and you're refusing to do the things that you should do? Like, this has so many different, areas of tangibility. And obviously we're talking about this in this context, but this also is so vital because we are talking about our health here. And what I wanted to highlight the most here, because it seems like here's where you finally made the turn, was whether you went straight to it or you stumbled your way into it or a combination of both, you found yourself in a place of self-awareness. You found yourself in a place of willing to look at what you're doing and ask the question, why am I eating? Why am I in this relationship? Why am I staying in this job? Why am I not doing these things that I know should work? Why am I not taking care of my body? Why do I hate myself? Do I hate myself? Is that question of why I hate myself, is that even in and of itself something that's leading me down a wrong, incorrect path? That's not even a valid question. It's about looking at yourself when you're not happy about what's going on and having a love and be devoid of judgment.
Yes.
And really more about self-acceptance and be willing to look at yourself and ask the question and service yourself. These are the things that I'm getting out of you as you are kind of, again, bringing us down this, this path, or letting us follow you on your story and your journey. How I'm describing it here, does that resonate? Is that a fair way of putting it?
Resonates really well because I come from a very German background, you know, and very, the concept too, I think we can grow up and what we see, what we model in life or in general. No one wants to be wrong. No one wants, we're afraid to make mistakes. We're afraid to show we've made a mistake. Therefore, we may not even do anything because it's safer just to stay, because I love this here. I don't remember where I got this, but success risks ego only. I found that if I let that and with even like with my fitness level and everything, because I used to go to the gym and I would look at everybody else. What are they doing? Are they looking at me? What if I can't do it as good as them? What if I'm not going to a class. I'm going to look terrible. I'm going to be all this noise. Nobody really cares about what you're doing, what I'm doing. And those that do are looking outside of themselves.
Yes.
Or self-worth. And so the biggest lesson, and they say it comes with age too, but it comes with experience, is once we realize that we're worthy, we're smart enough, we're worthy enough, we have but to figure out that brain, figure out how the brain is functioning. And this, again, I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. And that's why I loved talking with you, because integrative health means we're talking about finances, we're talking about career, we're talking about food, physical fitness, spirituality, joy, creativity, education, relationships, all of that. And so maybe, what we can say too, I work with a lot of people with food, but maybe too, it's like, are you really good at one of those areas? That skill set can move into all the others as well. That the other thing I love to think about is that once I released perfectionism, I also released outcome. My body's going to look like it's going to look when I eat well and when I exercise. And as long as I do those things to help it be the best it can be, irrelevant of what it's going to look like, my stress went down so much in regard to, wanting to eat well. I want to eat well because I want to take care of this beautiful thing that I'm given the opportunity to live in. Everyone has this beautiful, amazing body that they can live in and experience life in. And once it was, instead of, I would be like, body, you're going to take whatever I give you. You better like these 5 drinks. I don't care. You better like this, processed whatever it is I was eating. You better like, I don't care. I really said that. I was like, I was just, anyway, I was
got to that
so
point.
Disconnected. So, but when I changed that view of, oh my word, I have this amazing opportunity on this planet right now. And if I can look at food as a way that's going to help me maneuver. It's going to help my brain think. It's going to help me be successful in a career because I won't be anxiety ridden. I won't feel sick. I won't be exhausted. You know, I'm like,
so
yeah, it was really interesting. It's like, oh,
it's really, it's funny because I hear that I was, I was watching, WandaVision. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's like, it's a
I've
new show.
seen 3 episodes. I
So,
haven't gotten very far.
so I won't drop any spoilers on you, but I
No,
will
don't.
say that a certain character in the show identified, someone as the problem in all this. And they said, this is the problem, so therefore this is the solution. And I want to bring that up because here you're talking about the food. You basically took food, which you had invented or created as a problem for yourself in your life. You made that the source. And now you've kind of flipped it, where it's like you're not just finding a way around the issue, you're actually making that source that was the problem, you're making that the solution. You're saying, how can I use food in my life to benefit my body, benefit my mood, improve my body chemistry, improve my energy, improve my sleep, really get me more balanced and in control and enjoying my life. That's what I'm hearing out of this. And
Yes.
real quick, just you mentioned what I think is a hot button in this world. You were talking about a lot of people, they are pre-diabetic without even knowing it.
Yes.
And I don't know if there is an answer to this question, but I figured let me ask you and you'll know whether there is or not, right? Besides going to the doctor, is there a way for someone to identify that they may be pre-diabetic?
Yes. So, first thing I would say, pay attention. What's going on? If you feel off. The main thing that I would say, the easiest thing was I was very thirsty. I was wanting a lot of water. And then as soon as I drank water, I'd be in the bathroom. So it was a different, I write about in the book too, it was a different potty urge than just, having a full bladder. It's really the body when you're drinking the water and it's trying to get that sugar out of your blood and it's trying to clear your system as fast as it can. And so if you're overly thirsty and you're urinating a lot, I would, go ahead and hop on even, American Diabetes Association website or something like that for the symptoms of prediabetes. And the other thing I want to say, if you haven't been to a doctor and you don't know what your blood work is because you're afraid to know, get your butt in there, get that metabolic panel, because the amazing part is, so the body wants to regenerate. It wants to work efficiently. It wants to do specific things, to keep you up and moving and feeling well. And if you can catch these chronic lifestyle diseases soon enough, you can avoid medication. You can reverse them. You can even get off medication with a strategic plan. I guess it's just like finances. You need to get out of debt. You have a strategic plan, and the body's amazing. It doesn't matter what age you are, because I was buying into it, like I said, at 39, 40 years old, that it was over. I'm 54 now. And I'm like, I feel better than ever because I finally understand my relationship with food. And I finally understand what foods make me feel good and what foods make me feel horrible. And then I'll still make a choice. I said, okay, I love caramels. I love caramels, but you know what? I eat them and I'll have a stomach ache, pretty quick, but I love them. I love them melted on popcorn. So I write about it in the book too. So every now and then though, I'll make a choice. I don't eat the whole bowl like I used to, but I'll allow myself to enjoy some of that stuff. But I also know, and I make an educated, I know that it's very possible I'm not going to feel good after, so now it's easier for me to say, well, how much is that worth to me to not feel good after?
Right.
So it's making that connection. And so again, pre-diabetes, it's interesting. One thing that helped me recover too was, finally, a friend dragged me to the gym and she got me on a spin bike. And I was afraid to go to to spin class because I figured everybody was going to be paying attention to me and I didn't know what I was doing. And she goes, everybody's doing their own ride. And so I'm in there, and I used to bike when I was young. I loved being on a bike. And I saw this big banner. It said, take the ride of your life. And it was for the Tour de Cure, the ride for American Diabetes Association. So I thought, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could do that. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go big. I had 7 weeks to train. It said, well, if you train 10 miles every week, get up to miles and every weekend you add another 10. I thought I could do a 70. I didn't know any different. And I did. I got out there and I did a 70 miler. And then the next year I did 100, and I do 100 milers. I haven't done one in a couple of years, but what I want to say was I went from pre-diabetic, knee injury, overweight, feeling like I had nothing that I could do for my body. And I ended up doing century rides, know.
In other words, like, your body is an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah.
And if you just work with it and you give it the opportunity to really show you what it's made of,
Yes.
it's going to blow you away. And I want to say this real quick. I'm going to read your credentials here. You're certified integrative nutrition health coach. You're certified precision nutrition health coach. You're a certified NASM personal trainer and weight loss specialist. And I'm reading that out right now because you know better than me what constitutes medical advice, what should be said, what shouldn't be said. And I'm saying that with the pretext of playing devil's advocate. People should go to the doctor. I know that certain people are not going to. And with that in mind, knowing what's okay to medically say or not say here, what would you say if you're just telling someone like, okay, let's assume you are pre-diabetic and you're not going to check on it, and they're saying what foods should or could they eat to help solve it right now without the diagnosis of a doctor, without even knowing that piece? Where would you lead them?
What I would say is it's very well known now in the medical community. Our bodies don't know how to handle processed food. They weren't made to consume processed food. So my advice is do what you can to start minimizing how much processed food. That's anything that's in a box. That's anything that looks different than when it came out of the earth, and start integrating, whole grains and vegetables, some fruits, lean meats, the healthy fats. If you're overweight, love that body right now, love it, and start letting it move, start exercising, start giving it that nutrition. That was the other thing. When I was pre-diabetic, if you think about it, what you consume, you then swallow, and then it goes through your digestive tract, and what isn't eliminated is absorbed into your body, which becomes your blood, becomes your cells. When I was pre-diabetic, I was French toast, syrup, rice-a-roni, I was pasta, I was wine, I was cookies, I was maybe, this much vegetable. And so when you look at your plate, this is really a great exercise. What is that that's on your plate? And is it going to serve you or not serve you in a way that supports your body? To make a lifelong change, you've got to also, as a pre-diabetic, I had to be willing to take the journey and be willing, to learn. So I can sit there and say, well, just eat more vegetables, just do these things. I was there and it was like this. Yeah.
It's got to be worth it to them.
Yeah. Be ready for the days that are going to be really tough, for the times you want to go out to eat and you feel like you can't have something. As you go along the journey, actually what you're probably going to end up craving will end up changing.
Your taste buds will change, right?
Yeah, your taste buds. And then you build actually a whole different colony of microbiome, and little critters in your gut that will that want the vegetables, So I would pick, there's low hanging fruit. So I would say if you're pre-diabetic, you think you're pre-diabetic and you want to know where to start, what's the simplest thing is start to crowd out those carbohydrates, the refined carbs, go for a walk after dinner. That would be a great place to start. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to go to the doctor, you can find online, labs and things like that, where you can just get blood work done, and find out your numbers, and you can talk to a lab, actual doctor online that's specific about the lab work. That stuff is available. But honestly, it's worth finding a doctor that you like. They can be your friend, and, mm-hmm. and Dr. Hyman, he heads up the Cleveland Clinic. He's an integrative doctor. He has a book on how to talk to your doctor. It's free online. So maybe Google that. How to talk to your doctor, Dr. Hyman. So, and it's a free.
I'm typing that right now because I'm going to try to find that.
So I can find that. Here. Yeah, Dr. Hyman's How to Talk to Your Doctor. And it has more to do with pre-diabetes and diabetes, but the body is a system. Mm-hmm. And so diabetes or pre-diabetes can be a gateway to heart disease. Heart disease can be a gateway to diabetes. So anything you do, say if you are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, to reverse that is going to be wonderful for your brain, for inflammation, bringing down inflammation in your body. Because we are a system. We're not just a heart. We're not just a kidney.
Yeah.
We're not just it all works together.
I mean, a lot of this, it sounds like, have common sense and have self-care, and a lot of that will go pretty far.
It does. And again, I want to say if anyone is like I was, and you may not believe me, I do have before and after pictures on my website, but, I was a tough nut to crack. I wasn't into wellness. I didn't believe that, the food that was allowed in the store was really going to be bad for me. If it said it was 100% nutrition on the front of the box, that's great. It obviously would be. And then the other thing is I didn't want to have to learn. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to take the time. And it was interesting. So allow your brain to kind of go through the bit of the strife, laugh at yourself. Number one, I think, just relieving that pressure of being perfect. And then when your brain has a tantrum because you're not going to have dessert tonight, you say, I hear you. It's okay. We're going to be all right. Right. It's going to have a tantrum. Right. I just love the whole concept of the way the mind works, and mindset is so important. So
now, with that in mind, you got the mindset piece handled. You started doing the work. You started doing the research. You've got a number of books. The latest, Your Personal Journey with Food: A Roadmap for the Confused and Frustrated Dieter. And we were talking a little bit about this before. I understand you're using this book, it's almost as a conduit. I mean, it's got value in and of itself, but it builds on an experience where you're taking people through a journey. Like what was the mission as you were crafting this book, and where do you take this exactly, in case people are curious?
Great. So the idea was that when I talk to people, or and it was for me too as well, number one, they don't know why the diets don't work, or they believe the diets don't work. And they're frustrated. There's so much noise in the nutrition and diet industry. And so when Ingrid and I, my co-author and I, we went through school together, we were peer coaches, we realized we had gone through our own childhoods and we had our own reasons for having our relationship with food that we did, but we had both used similar mindset and steps to get our health back, and even better than what we had ever had before. So what we realized is everyone's journey is really actually personal with food. So someone can say, you need to do keto. oh, you need to be a vegetarian, or you're eating too much meat, or you're too much this or that. You have to fit into this. And I've done that, and I've been confused. I've been upset. There's been a lot of, too much restriction. So the idea of our book was we really want to reiterate to everybody that, your life is your life. You have your reasons for the relationship with food that you have. And what's important is to create a relationship that fits into your life or teaches you how to make adjustments in your life to allow good nutrition. So what we did in the beginning, the very first part in the introduction, we actually do an assessment. And so I know I hated doing assessments on myself to begin with, because my perfectionism didn't like seeing the truth, of where I was. But the idea is we want to assess where you are. And then you read the first 3 chapters in order. And then you actually have your own order after that, depending on your assessment. So after you've done your assessment, there's a page in there where you write which chapter you go to next based on where you are. Because I've read books before where I've floundered through the first several chapters. And then finally, like chapter 9 or 10, I'm like, this is the one I kind of wish I'd read first, So what we want to do is make it a personal journey. And the idea is you do a chapter a week, and there's 15 chapters. You can run through it really quick and come back and do it, but you have places to write your notes, all of that. And whatever you write in there is going to be different than what someone else that bought the book is going to experience.
Right. So it's like with the understanding that this really is a personal thing. I mean, in one way, it's everything's universal, but another way, the way it's experienced is personal. You said, let me find, no pun intended, a dieting book where it's not one size fits all. And it's about, how do we adjust mid pathway to meet each person where they really are, which I think is really cool. What a cool concept.
Yeah. And the idea is we're going to introduce the readers to why they eat, where did that maybe come from? Because once you know where you are, because the concept is, you're going on a journey. Usually you would make sure you had your passport, you'd have a map, you'd have it laid out, but you also kind of need to know where you are to begin with to even start. And so the goal is to figure out where you are, where your mindset is around food, all of that. And then you go into these other chapters and you really start doing the work around that. It's not a book that we don't have any recipes in there or anything like that. This is about you figuring out your relationship with food now, and then you start to create a most wonderful relationship, not only with your food, but with your body and with your mind and with yourself. And then our hope is that at that point, when you're done, you'll be able to kind of put the blinders on to all the noise. You'll be figuring out what you like to eat, how great your body feels on different foods, all of those things, in a really safe environment, And the other thing I've got, it's in ebook as well as printed paperback, but we created actually a website for the book, so that, which is listed in there. So when you read the book, you can go to the website. It's free. You can create a free account, and in there are all the PDFs, additional handouts. So if you don't want to write in your book, you can go and grab the PDF and the journal. And I think too, depending on where you are with your relationship with food, you could probably go through the book a couple times. Because for me, I would reach a level of, where I could live and feel good. And I'd be like, I think I want to notch it up a little bit and see if I can even, get more nutrition in my body, more fit, more of, something that makes me feel really good. That's good for me. And so that way you can go through and kind of recheck and, like with business, you go and you do your quarterly review or something.
Yeah. So for this, I mean, there's a lot of depth here, and there's a lot where you can follow people along. But as I understand it, the starting point is the book. They begin with the book, and then that gives them the options to go from there.
Yeah.
With that in mind, is there a specific website to go to, or Amazon? Like, what's the best place for people to go to if they want to check this out?
It's on Amazon, yes. And then also now it is available through independent bookstores. You can order it through independent bookstores. So if you would rather support independent bookstores, you can do that as well. And my mind is blank in the aspect of there's specific
Yeah. I mean, I put this, let's say that I want to give the listeners one link for them to check it out. What's the best one for them?
I would just go to Amazon.com. That's
cool.
Very easy. And then also, the other thing I wanted to do with the book too was create an online course, group coaching program. So that is finally going to be available starting in April, and I'll be launching it out every couple months, every 3 months. And so you have the opportunity to be also instructed by me as
nice.
you're working through the book, and in a very safe and great environment, with support.
Wonderful. So quick, like recap. Obviously, we've done like hopefully what I want to do. I mean, like, wow, we're already past 40 minutes here. You kind of like established like, these things, like everyone goes through something to a specific extent, whether it has to do with food or not. And within the confines of this, I mean, I guess fortunately for people, you've been there, you've fought these hard fought battles, and you've used what you've learned to kind of begin this experience. And obviously, I'll put these links for people. So I guess now that people know about you, they know where to find this. One final like go away thing I want to do here is just to ask you, based on everything you've learned, based on everything we've covered, if you were to give like the one top piece of advice that you want to say to anyone out there who is in the middle of a similar struggle that's going to help them along, what pops in your mind that you're inspired to share right now?
You are worthy right now, and your body's worthy right now, for you to give yourself permission to take care of it and to take care of you. You're worthy. You're absolutely worthy. And it's so worth the time. I promise. That's what I want to say.
Tracy Cromwell, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being so thorough, because I think it's important. A lot of people, they'll hear, yeah, I went through X, Y, and Z, and they don't really, they're like, you haven't been through, I've been through, and you don't know this. Like, you've been very open and sharing about these experiences, which I would hope will help people to kind of identify and let things click through. And like you said, give themselves permission, let themselves understand that they're worthy of this. And for me to add a little bit extra that we kind of said before, let them understand that their body has a lot more internal resourcefulness than they give it credit for, that would come out if only they kind of began and watch things unfold. I would go in that direction. So Tracy, Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this insight. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Andrew, thanks so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you.
Thanks again, Tracy, for joining the show today and sharing all that wonderful insight and really sharing all the years of experience that you've put into this. Really do appreciate it. Guys, I want to make sure to leave the best link to connect with Tracy in the YouTube description of this if you're watching it in video format. And if you're checking it out in audio format, I'm going to leave the link where this episode resides at shatterthemoldpodcast.com. With that said, also final quick reminder, if you want to check out the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, you can feel free to go ahead and go to lastlawofattractionbook.com. That'll auto forward to the Amazon listing, but if you just want to check out content without pulling out your wallet, you can also go to youtube.com/AndrewCap. With that said, thanks again to Tracy. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks to everyone for listening, and be on the lookout for more episodes soon with more awesome guests. I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Shatter the Mold at www.shatterthemoldpodcast.com. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan, and it's time to shatter the mold.